With all due respect, that's a bunch of malarkey. This is a bunch of stuff, deal.
What does that mean, a bunch of stuff?
Well, it means it's simply inaccurate.
It's Irish.
It's Irish. It is. We Irish call it malarkey.
Thanks for the translation.
No, we Irish call it malarkey.
You know what this is? Yeah, and I reserve this word for those rare instances when it's truly deserved. This is malarkey.
That's a bunch of malarkey.
From the King Spring Studios here in Smyrna, Georgia, this is A Bunch of Malarkey. I'm your host, Charlie McMahon. Thank you so much for tuning in for our, I guess you could say, mid-March, pre-Major League Baseball debut version of the show. This is our last full weekend without regular season meaningful baseball. So for you baseball fans, I'm sure you are excited. And March Madness, of course, underway. And speaking of March Madness, we have a guest host today. And he is my father-in-law. His name is Paul, and he's coming all the way from Long Island to be here today. So let's welcome Paul to the show. Welcome. Thanks for coming in.
Hi, Charlie. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. You're a coveted guest. I've been trying to get you on for a long time. I said, he's visiting Georgia. Let's get him on the show.
I can't come down here every week.
Yeah, exactly. We can always have you by phone. So, my father-in-law has been here since, what'd you come, Thursday night?
Thursday.
So we've been, doing little things around town, and he's been here plenty of times before. We've been here 8 years, but we had a little bit of our own March Madness the other night, right? We went out to dinner on Friday night.
We absolutely did.
So let's tell you a story. Folks, every time I go out to dinner, it turns into a story here on the podcast. So the other night we decided, I think it was Friday night, we decided to go locally. There's this great Thai restaurant that we go to all the time, and it's in one of those, what do you call those developments, like work, play, live type developments where there's like townhouses above the restaurants? It's a nice little place, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So in this development, there's all restaurants and bars and shops. And now my wife, as you know, is vegan. She's been begging me to go into this natural food grocery store in there.
I don't remember the name of it, but then
yeah,
we want to.
Yeah, exactly. So she's been begging me to go into the store, and every time we get there, I'm hungry and I just want to go eat. But we got there for dinner early at it was like 5:20. We were there for like the early bird. So I said, if you guys want to walk around before going into the restaurant, she goes, well, let's try that grocery store that I've been nagging you to go in. So we go in the grocery store. That was a nice little store, right? Inside.
I was very taken aback by the store. Everything was so neat. The cans piled neatly. All the names of the cans facing the right way. Everything was organic. Everything was vegan.
So
said, this is a nice place to be.
Absolutely. So we're going through the store aisle by aisle just to see what they had. I stumbled across some. I haven't had cream soda in years, like a 4-pack of natural vanilla cream soda. We're going through the aisles. So we start in one end of the store, and we working our way over and over and over. And we finally get to an area, and it was it looked like it was like half finished, the store, even though the store's been there. But it was like a big salad bar, with the sneeze guard over it and all the utensils where you could just pile up a salad and pay for it. I guess they weigh it at the register, right? It was a nice little salad bar.
Right, it was the last aisle.
Right, on the left side.
Right, absolutely. All right, go ahead.
No, so you were at that area before me. So tell everybody what you saw near the salad bar.
I'm walking down the aisle, and the salad bar is to my right. And I'm walking down. I'm looking at the beans and the string beans and the salads, and I just so happen to look over to my left, and there's a trifold privacy screen there. And
like a room divider type thing.
Right. So I look between the cracks of the privacy screen, and there's a guy sitting there like in either couch or like a barber chair, and he's got his pants legs rolled up, no shoes or socks on, and he's got his feet in this pan of water.
And he was being tended to by an employee, right?
Yes, he was.
So, folks,
but it didn't click with me.
Right, and you didn't say anything.
I just kept on.
So he keeps on walking, and now I head over there, and I was immediately alarmed. I looked through the screen, too, to see what was behind there, because I'm like, why does the store just end, and there's still about, 10 feet to the side wall? And I'm like, yeah, at least. So I look through the screen, and I see a man, again, with his pants rolled up, with his feet in water, with his wife, and I think his wife was preparing to put her feet, and some employee. Now, folks, how sanitary is this? foot massage or whatever the hell was going on 2 feet from the salad bar.
You're walking down a salad bar, and if you see something go past your eyes, you're just hoping it's not a toenail.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're like, are these toasted almonds? No, they're donuts. I mean, folks, there's got to be a board of health regulation with these health food stores. And I know, like, the big chains, like, what are the Whole Foods? They have weird stuff going on in that store, too. You get a massage in aisle 3. You're buying popcorn in aisle 4. What the hell's going on with these natural food stores?
That's why I keep away from them.
Yeah. I mean, it's like bring your own cheese grater to get those corns and bunions off the bottom of your feet. I mean, seriously, folks. So that was our experience in a health food store. We went in there just to browse, and we ended up seeing the most bizarre thing. Somebody getting, I don't even know if it was a massage or a pedi. I don't know what the hell was going on. I didn't stay long enough because I didn't want them seeing me peek through the cracks. So I don't know what it was.
I really just can't believe that I walked past it and it just didn't click.
Yeah, you didn't say anything. You let us find out.
I looked over there and says, oh, okay.
Okay, this is normal. This is what happens in Smyrna. We don't do that on Long Island. So, folks, that was our adventure, our pre-dinner adventure on Friday night. So, like I said, this is why I rarely leave the house unless I have to go to work or to, you know, go out to eat once in a while. Because every time I go out, there's these bizarre people and bizarre stories. You can't leave the house without stumbling on some shit like this. So, speaking of bizarre, folks, you know, I've been driving for the Uber. And I've been giving you an update every week for the Uber Eats. I haven't put passengers in my car now in a couple of weeks, ever since the guy with the mask. You know, God knows if he had Ebola, whatever. I don't put the people in the car. So what do you think I got summoned for this week? You know the bagel and cream cheese story? You're a listener to the show, right?
Yes.
So what do you think I got called for this week? What nonsense item? Take a wild guess, or just what do you think could be the most trivial thing someone could order?
Probably a can of soda and travel 10 miles to deliver it.
I got called to the heart of the city. Well, I got called to a local restaurant near the house here to pick up 2 chocolate milks and drive them 14 miles into the city. I mean, folks, you don't keep a can of Quick in the closet? I mean, you never know when you're going to need it, right?
Put it in the closet. You forget
about it. So I'm driving 2 chocolate milks to this guy, and he's, again, in his sweatpants, middle of the day on Monday, I think this was, grabs the chocolate milks, closes the apartment door. And then I get some. And now I understand if somebody wants pizza. We all love pizza, right? Who doesn't love pizza?
Nope.
Guy, I get a call for 2 slices of pizza from a gas station. You know how there was a little marts in there with hot dogs? Who's ordering gas station pizza like it's gourmet?
That's like ordering gas station sushi.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm driving these 2 slices of pizza well into like the bad area of the city. So, folks, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. So hopefully Uber. I actually read that as of Wednesday, they put a minimum fee down on the order. So hopefully this nonsense is going to stop because people are going to have to pay like a surcharge, I think, for anything under $10. So if you just want a French fry, folks, get the hamburger and the soda because it's going to save you money in the long run if you're ordering stuff to the house. So you know how we always talk about neighbors on the show? There's a bizarre story, and guess where it's from? What state? What is a bizarre state?
It's got to be Florida.
From Florida, from the Tampa area. Now, have you ever relieved yourself in your backyard? Maybe in an extreme emergency one time?
Maybe if I walked in my sleep.
Yeah, you know, folks, they say your home is your sanctuary, and this is where you do whatever you please within the confines of your walls. But as soon as you step outside, you know, you're in the eyesight. Nowadays, people have cameras mounted to the house, these Ring doorbells. You're being watched pretty much all the time. You know, you're in the eyesight of your neighbors. Everybody's nosy. And who hasn't tried spying on a neighbor to see their habits and their quirks? Well, one neighborhood got a little more than it bargained for in Tampa when a man decided to relieve himself outside in his yard repeatedly. Folks caught him urinating on his own property on more than one occasion, and they were perplexed as to why he would do this. It wasn't a sight they wanted to see, especially with children in the neighborhood. When a reporter confronted the man about his actions, I guess these neighbors called the news, he claimed, folks, this is a new one, that his urine keeps cats off his property, and he has dogs, and he doesn't want cats anywhere near his dog. So wouldn't the dog keep the cat away?
Yeah, but, you know, suppose the dog's indoors.
So this guy's urinating all over his yard to keep cats away. And basically there's nothing that the police can do because they said it's on his lawn and in his backyard, and it isn't illegal. So basically they have to put up with this man pissing on his back lawn in the sight of their kids and
All I got to say, he must have had a hell of a bladder to cover his whole perimeter.
Exactly. So that's going to segue perfectly. I mean, this guy could be considered a mutant. That's going to be segue perfectly into our favorite segment.
Mutant of the Week.
And we had another landslide winner last week. The dressing room drinker, the woman who drank a six-pack of beer in the Target dressing room and got drunk and then walked out with all that merchandise and got arrested, beat the cross-continent quacks, the guys with no license plates, no passports, and 60-something jugs of gasoline in their car trying to drive from Canada to Mexico. The dressing room drinker is our winner by a 71 to 29% margin. Is that who you thought would win?
Yep, absolutely.
See, the quacks, I think they were just trying to prove something. I don't think they were genuine mutants, like real genuine mutants. I think they were just trying to pull a prank and try to be funny or clever.
I'd probably do that maybe if I was 17, 18 years old.
Right, but you wouldn't get drunk in a Target dressing room and try to steal stuff. So that's the definition of a mutant. So what do we have for you this week, folks? We have 2 more nominees, and Paul is going to read our first mutant nominee.
All right, this is mutant number 1. Oh, guess where? Florida. Police in Florida say a woman was arrested this week for allegedly shooting her boyfriend because he was snoring too loud. Lori Morin, 47, was charged with attempted murder and aggravated battery. According to the Brevet County Sheriff's Office, deputies responded to a home on Emerald Lake Drive after reports of a man being shot. When deputies arrived, the man and Morin said the shooting had been accidental.
Oh, always.
However, as deputies began investigating the incident, they found the shooting had been sparked by an argument between Morin and the victim, her boyfriend. Morin reportedly shot the victim because he had been snoring too loud. The couple had been drinking and had gotten into an argument before the shooting, according to the press release from the department. Authorities said Morin grabbed a shotgun and fired at her boyfriend. Boy, she really went all out.
Yeah, exactly.
The victim was taken to the hospital where he's still recovering from his injury but is in stable condition. Morin is being held at the Brevet County Jail with no bond, and that's good for that.
Yeah.
We'll call her the Snorer Sniper.
So how does, I can see like a handgun going off accidentally, but how do you accidentally shoot someone laying in bed with a shotgun? Like she claimed it was accident. How do you try to pass that story off?
I'm sorry, but I think the snoring was only the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. Well, Florida, there's something in the water down there. No offense to our listeners from Florida, but I'm sure you see it. If you're not a mutant and you listen to the show, you probably see it all the time down there. Something happens when you go down to Florida.
Well, you got drinking. You got arguments.
Yep. And snoring. And snoring. So that is our first mutant. Thanks for bringing that to us, the Snorer Sniper. Our second one comes out of Fort Worth, Texas. We've had a few Texas in the last few weeks. A woman is seeking damages of up to $1 million following a trip to the Olive Garden that she claims left her with burns that required medical treatment. The lawsuit was filed on March 8th. According to court records, the woman named Danny Howard, I don't know how that's a woman's name, but Danny Howard, was eating at an Olive Garden last August when she ate a piece of stuffed mushroom. Now, we all love stuffed mushrooms, folks. The lawsuit claims her mouth began burning, she began to choke, and was unable to breathe. She managed to dislodge the piece of mushroom and went home, according to the lawsuit. She later went to the hospital to see a doctor. On the way to the emergency room, Howard claims her throat began to close. She dialed 911 believing she was about to suffocate and that death was imminent. She was eventually taken from the hospital to a burn unit for treatment, according to the lawsuit. Howard claims the restaurant was negligent for not warning her that the mushrooms were hot. The lawsuit seeks damages in the amount of $200,000 to $1 million. So we're going to call her the Olive Garden Gobbler. I got a lot of questions about this. Is something so hot, I mean, wouldn't you first put it in your mouth, and if it was that hot, you spit it out? How did it end up in her throat if it was that hot? She just swallowed it whole?
This is the way it sounds to me. It's either that or she put hot sauce on that before she swallowed it.
That or she's allergic to mushrooms, and that's why her throat closed.
That could very well be.
People are always looking to make a buck.
Absolutely.
I hope that her lawyer didn't tell her to use the bomb. Little reference to Seinfeld there for you folks.
Who told you to use the bomb?
Exactly.
I didn't tell you to use the bomb.
So we have a pretty good matchup this week. The Olive Garden Gobbler and the Snorer Sniper. So Texas versus Florida this week, folks. So our poll will be up in case you're new to the show, which thank you, by the way, folks. 5,400 of you tuned in for last week's show, all about how the schools and failed us and what they failed to teach us to get us ready for real life. 5,400, and we just passed the 50,000 listen milestone on Friday night. So thank you all. But those of you that are new to the show and you don't know where to vote for your favorite mutant, it's on our Facebook page at A Bunch of Malarkey, and the poll goes up on Tuesday mornings and runs through Saturday afternoon. So you have 4.5 days to vote for your mutant of the week. So this morning, now I think I mentioned it in past episodes, how crazy I am about expiration dates, and I'm very neurotic with it. And it's a product of my childhood. My mother was like that. So anything that's even close to expiration or that looks weird, I throw it away. And, I don't think we waste a lot of food in this house, but I'm very paranoid about getting sick or eating something that's disgusting. So this morning, we decided we were going to make eggs. Now, we bought eggs on Thursday, and we do that shopping list where we don't go to the store and look at the products ourselves. They put them in a refrigerator in an area, and we pick them up. And whoever did this shopping list gave us eggs that were already past the sell-by date. We're going to explain the difference between sell-by, use-by, and best-by. But they were sell-by the 19th. Now, today, the taping of the show is the 25th, 26th. So these eggs are a week past the sell-by date. But, this was an adventure for me this morning, folks. I actually ate them. I would never do that, but that was the only eggs we had in the house. Now, you had no problem eating them, right?
I gobbled them down.
You gobbled them like the Olive Garden gobbler. Now, what do you, like, for something like that, now, do you follow these use by, sell by, and best by things at home? You're not a big follower of that.
Absolutely not.
Why do you think that they put those things on there?
I have no idea, and I have no use for any of them.
So you don't even, like, when you pull a salad dressing out of your refrigerator that's on the door that's open, you don't even look at the expiration. You just pour it on the salad.
Pour it on.
Pour it on. So, folks, the difference, in case you're wondering, use by, when it says use by, that label is aimed at consumers as a directive of the date by which the product should be eaten, mostly because of quality, not because the item will necessarily make you sick if eaten. However, the after use by date product is the quality after that date is likely to drastically go down much faster, and safety could be lessened. So that's what use by is. Sell by is basically aimed at the retailers, and it informs them of the date in which the product should be sold or removed from the shelf. So sell by is for the store.
That I could go with.
You can go with sell by.
Yes.
Okay. And best by is a suggested date to the consumer on which the date of the product should be consumed to ensure ideal quality. Smell and taste are not always good indicators of whether a food is safe to eat. Do you give it a smell test?
If you get ptomaine, then you know you shouldn't have eaten
it. After the fact. So, all right, let's say you get Chinese food. Everybody orders Chinese food, especially up in New York, folks. The Chinese food is probably the best. Maybe California and New York are the two best Chinese restaurant states. Now, you get Chinese food every once in a while, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you have leftover. What's your go-to Chinese dish usually?
Here, I'm pretty good with it. I won't eat it after the next day.
So you just do next day?
Next day, and that's it, yeah.
So what would your absolute, limit be as for how many days, like?
For Chinese food?
Yeah.
Next day.
Next day only.
After that, you open the refrigerator, you look in, it just ain't looking good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm the same way. Next day, I'm most leftover. On most leftovers, I do next day, or I won't eat it. What's something that you get, like pizza, maybe 2 days?
Well, pizza, I'll eat my pizza. We'll order a pizza at night. I'll eat my 3 slices, and I always leave a slice out, and I cover it. I leave it on the counter, and I have it the next morning with coffee.
Now, you should put that in the refrigerator.
I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that do the same thing.
Well, I took food safety courses for some jobs that I had, and bacteria actually goes crazy between the temperatures of 40 degrees and 140 degrees. So you're right in the wheelhouse where bacteria is growing on that like crazy, sitting on your counter.
But I did cover it.
But you did cover it. Now, I will do, well, there's usually never any leftover pizza because I love pizza, but they say the guideline is 4 to 7 days. Now, I couldn't see eating a piece of pizza 7 days after buying it from the pizzeria.
Well, unless it's in the back of the refrigerator and you don't see it.
Yeah, that's okay. But all these type of things, Chinese food is 3 to 5 days. Thanksgiving leftovers. How long after Thanksgiving do you eat that turkey and all that stuff?
Well, actually, it really doesn't last that long.
Yeah, 3 to 7 days, in case you're wondering for next year. So things like that, folks, you have to be very careful because food poisoning, 1 in 6 Americans suffer from foodborne illness every year. That's a pretty high stat. 1 in 6 people. But most people don't even know that they got it from the food. They think they just caught a stomach bug. They don't realize that it's from the food that they just ate. So even more of those cases, those stats aren't always accurate because a lot of people don't report it or get medical treatment.
Oh, sure.
So, folks, between 40 and 140, you want to make sure if your refrigerator has that digital thing on the outside, make sure it's somewhere between 32 and 40. Obviously, your freezer. But freezer, people think that freezers, okay, just because you put it in the freezer, that, especially meat, you put meat in the freezer, yeah, it can last for months, but there is still bacteria growing on that, but at a very slow pace. So if you don't rotate the meat, I grew up, my grandmother and grandfather used to buy the same crap all the time. Sausages, they were Italians, and they wouldn't rotate the stock. So one day we got a call in a panic from my grandfather, and he's like, I've been poisoned, she's trying to kill me. I'm like, what the hell happened? She fed him like sausage that were like 2 years old because she finally got down to the bottom of the freezer and almost killed my grandfather from sausage. Have you ever had like a bad food poisoning incident in your life?
When I was in the Army.
What happened in the Army?
They served macaroni and cheese and frankfurters. And I think they served that either 2 or 3 days in a row. And I remember we went back to our tent. We were in a tent at the time. We went back to the tent, and all of us couldn't get to the latrines fast enough. It was coming out all different ends.
It's like Frank Costanza cooked you the meal.
That's right, exactly. So, anyway, about 5 of us ended up in a hospital for 2 days.
Were you like dehydrated and everything from?
I just felt terrible. Just terrible. Yeah. And I'm sure I was dehydrated because there was nothing left to come out.
Right. And did they ever find out what it was?
No, our first sergeant swore that we were getting it from the candy machine.
Because he didn't want to criticize the food.
That's right.
Were you guys? Was that here in the States or overseas?
That was here in the States before I went overseas.
I was going to say, if it was in Germany, you'd think they'd know how to make a frankfurter. So it was probably the meat. I can't see, because it was probably like a powdered macaroni and cheese, right? I can't see them making gourmet with melting cheddar, and had to be like like a craft style with powder, that type of macaroni and cheese. So I can't see that going bad.
Yeah, I guess they made it with maybe, I don't know, like
milk,
powdered eggs, but I don't think it was from the frankfurters. It was probably from the macaroni and cheese.
Oh my God!
So,
no, I'm on.
Those were good times.
Yeah, exactly. I can't believe he tried to blame it on wrapped, sealed candy. No, I'm crazy about. It's awkward. In your own house, you have control over things. It's when you go to other people's houses. I was at a friend's house one time. It's going back maybe 15 years ago, and we went to her grandmother's house. They invited me for dinner. It was a friend I worked with, and we sat down to have the salad course and her grandmother was like in her 80s or whatever, and they put out salad dressing, just one type of salad dressing. I think it was ranch. And now, you know me, folks, I check expiration dates, but you can't flaunt it right in front of you at someone's house, so you have to casually glance at, and I think this was in 2003, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in the summer of 03. This salad dressing that they were eating said 2001 on it. And they were passing it around. Everybody was dumping it on their salad. And I'm trying to elbow everybody to let them know that this salad dressing is bad. And people were just pouring it on. And I don't know if anybody ended up getting sick. I ate my salad plain that night because I couldn't get everybody's attention. I just said, no, I'm going to pass on the dressing. And I just ate like a rabbit, the raw salad. But what do you do, folks? Tell us in the comments. You're at someone's house. Do you let them know? Are you rude and say, listen, what is this shit you're putting out? Or do you just keep quiet and not eat it? What would you do in that situation? Would you eat that dressing 2 years old? ranch? He's thinking about it, folks.
That's a tough decision. Well, first of all, I wouldn't have even looked at the expiration dates.
So you would have just dove right in.
Just went along my happy way.
And suffered the consequences after. I was at a girlfriend's house, my first girlfriend, and I was dating her about a year, and I was close with the family. I went over there, and her dad, they were Italian, and he said, "You're going to stay? I'm making pizza." I said, "We're turning down pizza, right?" "Sure." So he's getting all the ingredients. He's kneading the dough. Hopefully he washed his hands on like Poppy. Hopefully he washed it. He's kneading the dough. He's saucing it up nice, cheese. Then he goes in the refrigerator in the drawer and grabs a stick of pepperoni. So I'm like, oh, pepperoni. Who doesn't like pepperoni pizza? He pulls it out and it's green. I'm like, I never saw green pepperoni before.
St. Patty's Day.
Yes, St. Patty's Day version of pepperoni. So he looks, he goes, oh, it's a mold nut, and just starts scraping the mold off the pepperoni. It was about an inch thick. No, not an inch, about a half an inch thick. Cuts all the mold off the pepperoni and then slices it up and puts it on the pizza, pops it in the oven. So now I'm thinking of 101 ways how the hell I'm going to get out of there. I'm not eating that pizza. So I don't even know what I said. That my mom was waiting for me for something I had to go, and I bolted out. I wasn't eating that goddamn pizza. Would you have eaten that?
Absolutely not.
All right, so there are some standards.
See, between you and I think it's a generational thing.
Did you follow, like, when you were growing up, did you follow, like, expiration dates, or you just...
No,
So,
never.
So, like, if you opened a loaf of bread and
Even when I was living at home.
yeah, when you were younger, when you're a
I was
teenager
younger,
or younger, did you...
Never even thought of it. Never even thought about it.
Really?
Yeah.
You just... Now, I always wondered, let me ask you something. And you see it on a lot of TV shows from the 50s. And why did people get milk delivered to the house in the 50s? Why didn't people just buy milk at the store? Why was there a milk ban? What was the reason for it? I was asking my wife this the other night. I'm like, I wonder why people got milk delivered to the house. Why was that different from any other product?
Because, I don't know, I think milk, now this is my opinion, I think milk was probably drunk, is that the word? Drunk more than it is now.
So you always had to have...
So it was a very, very common staple. I mean, we used to go to the store. I know if I went down to the A&P, it was 19 cents for a quart.
Wow.
So, but, I think because it was, drunk by so many people in the household, I think that's what they did.
It had nothing to do with spoilage, like where you had to have it within a certain couple of days. Like it didn't have the shelf life in the supermarket that it does now back then. But there was pasteurization and everything.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so we were wondering why people got... So it was just the popularity of it.
That's my opinion.
All right. So speaking of dairy products, folks, now when we were kids, we would go to my grandparents every Saturday morning. My brother, my sister, and I. My parents had to work on Saturday. We were too young to be left alone at that point. And it was something to look forward to every Saturday. We used to have bagels and cream cheese and orange juice and all the candy. It was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, all the candy you can eat. It was a favorite day of the week. But every week we would have those bagels and cream cheese. And every week my grandparents would buy a new cream cheese. And we would go there and there would be about maybe a third of the cream cheese from the week before, well within the expiration date, only a week old. And me and my sister were too good for that cream cheese because we were spoiled at our house with my mother. And we would say, we're not eating that cream cheese. And my grandmother would scream, you kids are spoiled. And we would pawn that cream cheese off on my brother, my little brother. And he would sit and he would like get emotional and cry because we were forcing him to eat the, quote, old, end quote, cream cheese. There was nothing wrong with it. But as kids, we thought it was bad, it was spoiled. And we used to traumatize the poor guy every Saturday morning by eating that bad cream cheese. Looking back, that's silly now. I'm going to eat cream cheese that's a week old in the expiration. But we were drilled by our mom for some reason. Everything was bad once it was opened. And it kind of ruined me for life. That's why I am now.
It wasn't like that in our household.
You just ate it. If it wasn't growing. So nowadays, you buy a loaf of bread, it sits for a few days, like white bread or wheat bread, and then 3 days in, you notice mold on the first slice, but everything else is good. You just toss in that moldy slice and go in for the next slice?
Yeah, I don't see any problem with that.
Nah, once I see
it in the garbage, and if the next piece looks good and it's nice and white, go to now.
Once I see anything on anything, even if it's next to it, if it makes contact with the slice I have to eat, I'm not eating it. I don't know. It's just the way I am. Now, have you ever gotten food poisoning at a restaurant? Gone out? Never.
No. Military was the only time.
That was the only time. Yeah. See, I think I did once. My brother and I, going back 10 years ago, when he came up to New York to visit, it was Thanksgiving weekend, and we helped my mom move into like this senior apartment complex. And then that night we went out to dinner. And the next morning, my brother and I both got up at the same time in the middle of the night, almost banged into each other in the hallway, running for the bathroom. And we couldn't figure out if we caught like a stomach bug at this senior apartment complex that we were at, or if we got sick from the restaurant, because the only thing we ate in common that night at the restaurant was dessert, and it was tiramisu. So I guess you can get sick from tiramisu if what is that, mascarpone cheese in tiramisu, if that's bad or sour?
I guess you can, sure.
So that's the only thing we ate. So I'm not sure if we got a stomach bug, but I think that's the only time I really remember. No, actually, I got sick one time in a Mexican restaurant when I worked for the technology company, and that's when I raced home, told everybody I had to leave because I wouldn't use the bathroom at work. So twice I've gotten sick from restaurants.
You know, I was just thinking of my a good buddy of mine. He moved out of New York. They moved down to Virginia, and when they moved down there, his mother moved with them, and she lived down in the basement area. They fixed it all up for her so she could live down there.
Right. And
when she'd run low on a container of milk, what she would do is add water to it.
Just to make it look like she had more?
So when my buddy go down there, he used to have coffee with her in the morning. And he poured the milk in the coffee, and he said, "Mom, what the hell's the matter with the coffee?" She said, I added some water to it because I was running out. So he went and got a magic marker, and on the container he wrote "shit milk."
Yeah, that can't be good watered down milk.
So we always have a good laugh.
So what can you recall? Is there anything that stands out? Now, I know you don't have a strict what's the oldest thing that you ever looked at past the sell-by expiration date and thought, I'm going to eat it anyway? Okay, is there anything that comes to mind?
Right now, we still have eggnog in there from Christmas.
But it's still it's unopened.
It's unopened.
And it's still within...
I think it's supposedly good till April.
Would you still drink it?
I can't see it. I'm scratching my head on that one. But
would you still drink it?
Especially eggnog.
Well, that's the vegan eggnog, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
So it's made with soy milk. So that's still, coconut milk. So you might still be all right with that if it's sealed.
Yeah, if I was pouring that in a glass, I'd be looking real close.
But you do have stuff, a lot of stuff that you send us a lot of stuff, pictures of like stuff that you find that's like 5 years old. You don't eat that stuff, do you?
No,
you just joke around about it?
Yeah.
So would you eat like 3-year-old pasta past the expiration date because it's dry? Something like that? Or it's only if it's like cream or dairy, some type of ingredient that turns you off. But like a dry rice or a dry pasta, that's no big deal?
Yeah, I mean, rice, you'd have to take a look, see if there were bugs in it.
Bugs in it, yeah.
No bugs, go to town.
No, I'm fearful of getting sick from food, and that's why I don't eat any exotic, foods or meats, or I try to stay within the parameters of like what's normal. I don't eat a lot of meat at all anymore. Now, what do you think is like, what's like the craziest type of, I know you mentioned one time you ate alligator.
Yeah.
What's the craziest meats that you've ever eaten or caught or whatever?
Let's see, I've eaten squirrel.
Now, did you catch that squirrel yourself?
No, I did not catch it myself. No.
How'd you get squirrel meat? Like, was it at a friend's house? Or?
It was at my uncle's house.
Your uncle's?
Upstate New York.
Was it Parmesan? Squirrel Parmesan?
Well, upstate New York was this particular town. Actually, it was Pauling, New York.
Okay.
Very big hunting town. Anything up there in upstate New York.
You ate anything that was in the wild, pretty much.
Yeah.
And what kind of memories do you have of stuff you ate from there, other than the squirrel?
Well, alligator, of course, I ate, but that was down in Florida, and it does taste like chicken.
It does taste like chicken.
Well, what we used to do is, now this is going back, I mean, long time ago. It's probably, Jesus, must have been 53, 54, 1955.
Okay.
A long time ago, when men were men and sheep were scared. But we would go up to see my uncle, and he owned a house in Pauling, and we used to go down to the road, and across the road there was a big field, and that field the cows used to go to pasture. A little past the field there was a stream.
Right.
And I used to go fishing in that stream, but at night we'd go down there to catch frogs.
I can hear them now.
Well, we would go down there we'd take pieces of wood
Right.
for clubs.
For clubs?
For clubs, yeah. Not the Mickey Mouse club.
Right. Like actual, like, heavy clubs.
Yeah, heavy clubs. Now, I was like 7 years old at the time. We'd go down there, and the frogs were plentiful down there. And we'd come up to the frogs, and for some reason, these frogs would not move,
Right.
which was their downfall.
So what'd you do to the frogs?
Well, we club them on the head, and we'd put them in a sack.
Right.
And when we'd catch 20 or 30 of them, we'd take them back up, and my uncle always had people staying at the house, relatives.
Okay.
So the women would take them, and they would prepare them. They would cut the legs off, and they'd fry them up, and we'd eat frogs' legs.
Just frogs' legs?
Just the legs.
So, and there was enough meat on them to warrant...
Well, that's why we'd catch 20 or 30 of them.
Right. And they were good?
Oh, they're excellent.
I would never. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could eat a frog.
Well, you're not eating the frog. You just...
Well, even the legs. When you eat like pig's knuckles and feet and all that too, right?
Yeah.
Pickled?
Yeah, pickled pig's feet.
Oh, I used to see watch my grandfather with a giant jar that dig his hand into that
Yeah.
jar and just suck the
Well,
meat off the...
I'd use a fork.
No, he used to just dig his hand in there. We used to scream as kids. It was like the grossest thing.
We used to eat...
Do those taste... Well, they obviously taste pickled like with the vinegar. You get, but does it taste like pork?
It doesn't taste like anything I could tell you.
Ugh.
Nothing to compare it to. What else did I eat? I'd eat chicken livers.
Oh, my God.
Because I'd go to the supermarket and they'd have these containers of chicken livers there.
Right.
I'd fry those up with some tomato sauce.
I've never even eaten any liver except liverwurst, cold cut.
Okay.
It's just the thought of it. I'm not risky with foods.
Yeah, I know that.
I think the only thing, I've never eaten like a raw clam, oyster, anything like that either. You eat that too?
Raw clams. In fact, we used to eat, talking about the chicken livers, we'd also eat the chicken hearts.
Oh, that's disgusting.
We could tell the butcher,
Save the heart.
save the hearts, and they put them in a container, and we take them home.
Oh, that's gross.
And we mix those up with some tomato sauce also.
I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, but clams, yes, clams I'd eat. Oysters I eat, yeah.
No, I've never eaten it. I think a baked clam is as far as I've gone. I don't eat any. I've never tried it. I guess it's a fear of getting sick, or I don't know.
Well, once again, I think it's a generational thing.
Yeah, I don't wonder if people still eat this. I think bison's big now, and I think people eat ostrich. Have you ever had ostrich meat?
I haven't had ostrich, but I have had bison. Actually, out in Riverhead, Long Island, there is a buffalo farm.
Okay.
And he has hundreds of buffalo out there. And every once in a while, we'll go out there and take some photographs.
Right.
But he has hundreds of them, and there is a place down the road that sells the bison. So they do slaughter them for meat.
Meat, right.
All right, but he does have a lot of bison, and it's nice to go out there and see this. They're massive animals.
I remember a lot of diners on Long Island had bison meat burgers as an option rather than beef. I remember seeing that in a lot of menus up there.
I've had those, and the only thing about those is that there's very little fat on those. And
takes away from the flavor.
It takes away from the flavor, yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't eat it. So in summer, you don't like to throw anything away. You'll eat anything. You'll try anything.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So that segues perfect into like our second little discussion here. Now, you're a big collector of stuff, right? You like to collect. Now, we always discuss, with my wife, she's not a collector of anything. If she thinks if you have more than one of something, you're a collector. She doesn't collect anything. Now, you've been collecting stuff for years. Like, what you have collections of what? What type of things do you collect?
Well, I'm a history fanatic.
Yes.
And it all started when I was about 12 years old. It must have been about 1959. And we went to visit my aunt's house, and she lived in Canarsie, Brooklyn. And across the street from our house, it was all fields. It was a lot of people throwing their garbage there. This is before they built these high-rises over there. And walking through it one day, I saw a suitcase. Type of suitcase you would use going on a trip. And there was some dried red stuff coming out of it. And, of course, as a kid, I'm saying, there must be a body in there.
This was the height of the Goodfellas days, folks, in New York.
Yeah, you had to be on the lookout. So I went up to this thing, and I gingerly opened it because I don't know what I was going to find on the inside. And it was a bunch of newspapers.
Just newspapers?
Just newspapers. And I started looking through the newspapers, and there was one of the newspapers was the New York Daily News from 1935. And it said Italy invades the Ethiopia, and it was 1935.
This is 20 years later.
Yeah. And being a history person as it was already, now I had something in my hand that was from 1935, way before when I was born.
Right.
Well, maybe not that far.
I was pretty far behind.
And that's when I caught the bug. Then I started collecting newspapers. And at that time, as I got older, I found out there were other people in the country that also did collect them.
Right.
And we got to be a close group.
And how many would you say you have now, newspapers? Do you have
I just don't collect run-of-the-mill stuff.
Right, you collect historical.
Yeah, historical stuff. I probably have about 8,000 to 10,000 newspapers.
Wow. So you're would you say you're one of the, well, I guess because of the community, would you say you have one of the biggest collections of people you know, or is there a few people that have bigger collections?
There are a few that have bigger collections. There's a lot of them that actually sell them. But, yeah, I have about 8,000 or 10,000, but my papers run anywhere from, like, the Revolution to present day.
Wow. So you can open up a museum almost.
Oh, absolutely. I've taken them. I've exhibited them in libraries and different fairs like that.
Now it's obviously with all those papers, it's not something that you rifle through every day and look at. But people don't understand why. Like when you collect something, if you're not enjoying it every single day, like why do you collect? I know it's just your connection to history and just knowing you have them.
Right, both.
Yeah.
My connection to history, knowing I have them. It's the hunt for a paper.
It's a thrill of trying to find something.
Yeah. And once you get it, it's just
right.
It's
like a bug.
Yeah, it's satisfying.
Now, what other things you collect? Other things too. You're a big collector of stuff.
Yeah, I collect antique telephones.
Okay.
I collect antique phonographs.
Wow.
I collect.
I would be thrown out of the house already.
Yeah,
all that stuff.
You know what happens? You splinter. You splinter into other hobbies.
Right.
At first, it was strictly newspapers, but then all of a sudden, I splintered off into telephones, phonographs, and for the last maybe 10, 15 years, I've been collecting World War I and World War II propaganda posters.
Oh, wow.
Now I have about 250.
Oh, that's a nice collection.
So,
and these are all originals.
Yeah, all originals.
All originals.
Yeah, I'm proud of that collection.
Yeah, I collected a lot of my collections. I got rid of over the years because when you get married and settle down, it's But I still have. I got rid of all my records, and now I'm back into records again. I got about 600 vinyl records that I accumulated just over the last couple of years. Sports figurines, baseball cards, and you saw I'm always wearing. If I'm out, I'm wearing a baseball cap. Could be to cover the baldness, folks, and I got sunburned already this year, the other day. So you got to, when you're bald and you shave your head, you got to cover hats. So I got about a few hundred hats, but I really cut down. When you get married, you got to cut back on the collecting, folks. Women don't collect for some reason. Why do you think that is? Like women will collect shoes, and I don't want to say there's no women out there that collect and insult anybody, because there are women collectors, female collectors. But for the most part, if women collect, it's going to be handbags, shoes, something that they see as practical. They don't just gather stuff and have an emotional attachment as much as men do, and I don't know why that is.
I don't think I can help you on this one because I don't know. Even my wife, she doesn't collect things. And, she's happy when I get something.
That gives you joy, yeah.
But, she has no interest in it at all.
Did you know that 33% of women throw their partners' things away without them knowing? This is a true stat. And other figures indicate that men that live with women, whether it be girlfriend or husband and wife, only get to choose about 25% of what's in the home. That includes furniture, decor. Only 25% we get to choose, and that's probably our stuff.
I'm one in a million then because I got the whole basement.
Yeah, you got the whole. Now, I have these collections. Now, my wife doesn't get upset that I have this stuff, but I have to keep it confined to one room. And, ironically, I was telling you, the other day I looked at my driver's license, and I saw that I was an organ donor. And I said, turned to my wife, and I go,
News to you.
yeah, I don't remember. I think it's a good thing because if something happens, I can help somebody else out. But I don't remember filling that out. And I don't know if we pre-filled out our license things and then brought them. And my wife might have done mine and checked organ donor. So I'm joking with her. I'm saying, you not only want to get rid of all my collectibles, you want to get rid of my organs too. So I could see, folks, the day after I die, all my organs in a cooler out on the driveway, and she's negotiating with people.
Along with the baseball.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a.
You want one, you got to take the other.
I've got a 75 Reggie Jackson. It's $50, and I'll throw in a kidney, lightly used.
It's only good for 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. You got to get it transplanted within the next 48 hours. So I don't understand why. I could definitely see that though. The day I go, I think my stuff's going to be gone within a week. I think it's going to be on 6-foot table. So, folks, if you like sports memorabilia, hats, just wish for my demise real soon.
Just keep an eye on the obituaries.
Exactly. Yeah, Smyrna, Georgia. No, but they say, I did some research. They say men are inherent hunters and will usually be hyper-focused in their search, getting annoyed at anyone who stands in their way. Other people with similar interests are sometimes looked upon suspiciously or as potential competitors with men. Do you find that? Like on eBay, you do a lot of eBaying. Do you see other guys that are trying to get the same thing to you as like competitors and you have to beat them for that item that you want? Or do you see them because you know everybody in those communities?
Well, if I'm bidding on something on eBay, first of all, I never bid on it before it's over. I bid on
the last second.
5 seconds before the auction is over. And, depending on what it is, I know there's other people out there watching it just as well as I'm watching it. So, yes, there are people out there. And it gets down to, man eat man.
And it says women buyers are much more interested in collaborating with the people around them, and they are far more likely to consult the seller, try things on, ask opinions, and have more social interactions. Men take a much more academic view to collecting. For example, they often obsessively measure details on coins and stamps, variance down to a fraction of a millimeter, all in an effort to have as completely an understanding as humanly possible, while women might spend the same amount of time exposing themselves to a much wider view of the world, forming opinions on a wide range of labels, brands, fashion magazines, and celebrity choices. So we're looking at the corner of a baseball card and examining this. It says men are much more focused on the minute details of their collections rather than if a celebrity has it or if it's the latest trend. We have a different view on collecting.
Well,
what do you think of that?
If it's rarity, you want to get, and it's not complete, you want to get that. You'd rather have something that is not complete and wait down the line and maybe find that one that's better.
Better, right.
And then pick up that one.
So
it's better to have something than nothing at all, I guess.
It says men also rationalize their purchases and their collections as investments. Do you see it as that?
Yes.
You do? Okay. Because they're more interested in precise grading, catalog valuation, and market price trends.
I can't get that crazy. I could never see that as far as looking at a baseball card and seeing if it's just tipped, maybe it's rabbit-eared a little in the corner. I just can't get that crazy. But as far as investment goes, it's investments for my kids. It's really not going to be an investment for me.
Right. I think collecting only becomes a problem when, you start taking over a house. And that's almost borderline hoarding. But if you have your own little space for it and you're, even if a woman was to collect shoes or dolls or anything that she likes, as long as it's kept where you're not, like you see hoarders on TV, when it becomes a problem where you have a path through the house and it controls your life, I think that's when it becomes a problem. But I don't think there's anything evil or bad about just collecting stuff.
No, the hoarders you see on TV, something triggered them a long time ago.
They have an emotional problem or something.
And, that's, but I've seen people, it's talking about collections. I saw a person once, and I know there's more than one, that he actually collected the paper wrappers that were wrapped around fruit in a fruit stand.
What?
Yes. For some reason, he collected those paper wrappers because I think on the wrapper, it was printed on where the fruit came from.
Yeah.
And that's what he collected.
Fruit wrap. That's the strangest thing I've heard. Folks, what's the strangest thing you've ever heard anybody collect, or what do you collect? We want to hear in the show notes. My grandfather on my mother's side, I guess you can say he was bored. I wouldn't say he was a full-fledged hoarder, but he wouldn't part with anything, even if it was broken. I remember one time, I don't know if it was the blizzard of 78. I must have been 7 years old, so it had to be around that time. We went to his house, and it was snowing, and it was a significant snowfall, and he was outside. He had 3 brand-new snow shovels hanging in the garage, but he was using one that was held together with a nail. And it was functional, but he had...
I can relate.
Yeah, but he had 3 brand new ones hanging in the garage. And we said, Grandpa, why don't you use the new snow shovel? He goes, I'm saving those because you never know when I'm going to need them. Now, I'm chest deep in snow. When is this never know apocalypse coming? Like the rationale, like we talked this morning, Paul noticed that we got a new clock in the house. He hadn't been here for about a year. And said, what'd you do with the old one? And I said, my wife sold it. He says, I would have kept it as a backup. And I said, I probably would have done the same, but then I'm thinking of a scenario. When are you going to be sitting there and a battery-operated clock is just going to explode?
The clock is going to go.
It's going to go, where it's just going to explode, and you're going to go, shit, I'm so glad we have that backup in the basement.
Honey, go get it.
Go get it, exactly. So I have that rationale, too. Like, certain things I'll say if we replace and the old one still works, sometimes I want to save it, but my wife immediately gets rid of it. Immediately, whether she sells it on a marketplace or just throws it out. Well,
She's my kid, but I don't know where she gets it.
I like to have a backup because in my mind, and now I understand, looking back as a kid, I couldn't understand my grandfather's rationale about those snow shovels. But now we'll have it's just the 2 of us, and we have a service for 12 of plates, cups and coffee cups. And she took, I think, 8 of them and put them in. She didn't throw them away, but put them where in that. Yeah, folks, that cabinet above the refrigerator where you need like a ladder that you never go in. It's shift from 75 up there. So she put them up there, and I looked in the cabinet. I'm like, where are the plates and cups? She goes, we're not going. But in my mind, she says, we're never going to use 12. In my mind, I picture like an extension to the dining room table, 15 people at my house, all eating off those plates. It's never going to happen. Because if we have a big party, you use paper plates or you use something else, we go to Costco. But in my mind, I picture this happening, that we're going to need this stuff. It's sick.
Well, if it happens, you're ready.
Exactly. No, isn't it? It's a pain in the ass, though, to have something and throw it away or get rid of it, and then you need it 2 months later. Then you got to run out and rebuy it. I hate doing that. I'd rather put it on a shelf in the basement in the storage area and just have it.
It's happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to all the listeners out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I save stuff. I have stuff that my father had saved for 25 years before he passed away. And believe it or not, I pull out things downstairs that I need 20 years later, and I'll use them.
Yeah, because you always have that rationale that you're going to use it, and that's my rationale too. Now, I've gotten better, but here's things women do too, and I hate to generalize. It's not a women bashing episode, but like when I met my wife, I lived right near the beach. I lived 2 blocks from the beach, and then I moved like 4 houses from the beach, and my apartment was in a nautical theme. Now, I collected lighthouses and anything related to, like, beach, So it was like a bug, like you said, by getting that first newspaper. I bought a lighthouse at a crafts fair, and then I just started collecting lighthouses and nautical stuff. And I had pictures of lighthouses, pictures of the beach. My whole apartment, living room, everywhere was decorated in this, starfish, you name, because it was fitting for the area that I lived in. And right before we moved into our first house together, she's like, you're not going to use all this nautical crap. Get rid of it. So we had a big garage sale. I got decent money for it. Sold it all. And, fast forward a few years later, when we moved here to Georgia, we started out with a clean slate, the house, house. And she says, I think I'm going to go with a coastal theme in the house. I go, what do you mean coastal? She says, beach. And I said, are you out of your mind? I said, I had all that shit and you made me sell it. She goes, that was nautical. This is coastal. So, you can't get it confused, folks. There's a big difference between nautical and coastal.
Unfortunately, we don't know what that is.
Exactly. We'll never know, folks. We'll never figure each other's out. So, real quick, what do you think the 10 I have a list of the 10 most popular things people collect. What do you think some of those are?
That people collect.
Yeah, nowadays.
Dolls.
What is it?
Dolls.
Yeah, toys and dolls. Some of them are pretty common, stuff that we might have collected when we were younger.
No, baseball
cards, yep. Comic books.
Comic books.
You know what the number one thing people collect now is?
It's not Hummel figures.
No, think of what people do on weekends when they go around looking for stuff. What do they do? Where they go every weekend?
When they go to antique stores.
Antiquing is the biggest thing. Antique furniture is like the number one thing people collect nowadays.
Antique furniture.
Yes. Antique furniture.
Yeah, it's nice, but it's so, it's a bulky thing.
Yeah, and vinyl records is second right now, which I can relate to, which I had to stop. I had a custom cabinet made. Once it reached its max, I was warned not to go one record over that. So I don't. But believe it or not, wine is a big. It's made the top 10. People collect wine. They don't drink it. They just collect these certain vintages.
My boss did that. I had a boss, and he collected wine. He used to keep it in his garage. He had tons and tons of bottles of wine.
See, isn't that sad, that wine that will never be drank?
Well, he'd look and say, well, this is from this year here, and this is from that year here.
And he knew all about the crop that year and stuff like that. See, to me, certain things are just meant to be used.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a bottle of wine, you're drinking it. You better believe it. So we hope you enjoyed a little bit of talk about food, folks. So check those expiration dates. Again, learn the difference between sell by, use by, and best by. Some of it, I think, is a scam by these companies to try to get you to buy more and throw stuff out quicker. But, you don't want to get sick. So watch those expiration dates, especially if you go to over a mutant's house and they're trying to serve you a 1997 balsamic vinegar, creamy balsamic vinegar or something like that. And we want to hear in the show notes, in the show comments, what's the sickest you ever got off food? What's the most exotic thing you ever ate? Tell me your expiration refrigerator policy. And what do you collect? What does your family collect? What's the oddest thing you ever saw collect? So it's all about collections, not being able to part with stuff, throwing stuff away, and, of course, not dropping dead from eating. So, again, thank you all last week, 5,400 listens, and we hit the 50,000 mark. So I thank you very much. For the new listeners, where do you find us, folks? Obviously, you found us through some platform, but if you want to try a different platform, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio. That's your favorite, Spotify, right?
Spotify.
TuneIn Radio, Radio Public, CastBox, YouTube. Or if you have one of those Alexa devices, which we're having a lot of fun with, aren't we? Just say, Alexa, play the podcast A Bunch of Malarkey, and she will play the most current episode. And while you're at any of those platforms, make sure you subscribe. You'll get automatic notification of a new episode. And on iTunes or on our Facebook page, just give a review. Tell us what you think about the show. So did you have fun? It wasn't so bad, right?
No, it was good.
I think a lot of...
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
No, thank you. I think a lot of people, I've had a few people back out on the show. They think it's going to be more than just a couple of people chit-chatting, right? It's not that big of a deal. So, folks, whether you're, looking through your refrigerator for expired crap, whether you're fighting with your significant other about your collecting, still, folks, it's better to stay home and enjoy those things. Because you know why, folks? Because you always, always, always have to beware. And you have to beware why? Because it's a shit show out there. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been A Bunch of Malarkey. Have a great week, everybody, and take care.